Welcome to News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery.
Welcome to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and my guest today is Sharon Davis, the Executive Director of the Wasp Museum. Many of you have met her before for several reasons. Many years ago, she was Miss West Texas and lived in Odessa for a year while she was carrying out the duties of that role. But more recently, she's been a guest on this program, and we've talked about the Wasp Museum. However, she's here today to talk about a really special thing coming up on Veterans Day, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But I wanted to, first of all, just for those of you who might be watching that are not really familiar with what WASP means and what the Wasp Museum is, then I want her to give us a little bit of information about that. And Sharon Davis, we're so glad to have you here, and thanks for coming all the way from Sweetwater to be here. So tell us a little bit about the Wasp Museum.
Oh, I'd love to. The Wasp Museum honors the women Air Force service pilots of World War II. These women were the first women to ever fly military planes in the United States. They were called upon when there was a huge need for pilots to go into the European theater, into combat. And so the government saw that as a way to release some more men into combat service. So they brought women who had a pilot's license. They brought them to Sweetwater, Texas, to train them to fly military planes. They were brought in to ferry planes, move planes from factories to bases or base to base, but actually they ended up doing much more than that. Some of them became engineer test pilots. Some of them became maintenance test pilots. Many of them towed targets for live gunnery practice. Yes,
Let me emphasize that. These women test drove these airplanes to see if they were safe enough for the men to fly.
That is correct.
And the second thing is they drug behind their planes the targets, and they shot real bullets at those targets.
They did.
So some of them could have accidentally gone another direction.
That's true, and sometimes they did.
I just wanted to get that. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, the word live is very important. And so they took great risks in this job that they did for our country. They came from every state in the United States, plus one came from Hawaii, which was not yet a state, and one came from Canada. And there were 1,834 of these courageous young women came from all over the United States, as I said.
Who sometimes had to defy their own family.
Absolutely.
Because that just wasn't the thing.
You can just imagine how mothers and grandmothers and some fathers felt about their little girl leaving home to come out here to West Texas, where they'd never been before, and do this
join the Army.
Yes, join the Army and do this thing that no woman had ever done before. And so they came out here, leaving homes in lush plantation areas with beautiful gardens and trees. They came out here to West Texas with the tarantulas at the time. Back in the 40s, we still had lots of big tarantulas, rattlesnakes, you know, things that they had not contended with.
And one was a debutante from Philadelphia.
Oh, yes.
One of the first ones killed, as a matter of fact.
Yes, they came from all walks of life. We had models from New York and an actress from California. We had a Sioux Indian from the reservation. And we had the heir to the Florsheim shoe fortune, the premier woman golfer of the time. They came here to Sweetwater, Texas, or they came to Sweetwater, out here to West Texas, and were wanting to do what they could to help our country in a time of war.
And they loved to fly.
They did. They loved to fly. I asked one time back in last fall, I asked her, she came from Georgia out here, and I asked her what she thought when she was taken out to Avenger Field. She looked out across there and there wasn't a tree in sight. She said, you know, I didn't mind. I saw the planes.
That's all she cared about.
Yes. They were really spunky. Back in 1943 and 44 when they came to West Texas to learn to fly those big planes, and those that remain are really spunky today. Johnny Lou, 1,074 of those women graduated from their training and went on to be placed at 120 different air bases throughout the United States, and they to do the different jobs that we've already talked about. And out of that 1,074, of course, they're like the rest of the World War II generation. Their numbers are declining fast. And so now there are only about 275 of them still living.
And in fact, we lost about 3 of them in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
That is correct.
So
it's always a sad day when we lose one of them, because they are such
treasures.
Such treasure. They are a national treasure, and that's what we feel like that we have in Sweetwater at the museum. The museum is actually at Avenger Field. We're in a 1929 hangar that was there when they were there. We've dubbed it Hangar 1, and we have all sorts of WASP paraphernalia, many of their pictures. We have a PT-19A, a training plane that they trained in, one of the first planes that they flew, open cockpit, beautifully restored, maintained and operated by one of our board members. He still flies it, and it stays in the museum. We have a Jacqueline Cochran exhibit, which was brought to us in May by a couple from California that knew her personally. She's one of the directors of the WASP. In fact, one of the founders, and she was made director of training at Avenger Field. Actually, Jacqueline Cochran is the one that presented the idea to President Franklin Roosevelt that women could be used to ferry planes to release men into combat.
And she had an illustrious career. She went on to be the first woman to break the sound barrier and a whole bunch of other things. But one of the interesting things, well, we've got to take a break. It's time for us to take a quick break, but we'll be right back and continue this conversation and talk about the Veterans Day celebration. See you in just a moment.
Tuned. West Texas View will be right back.